Coach, if you'd like, we can start with an opening statement, and when he's finished, we'll open up the floor for questions.
Well, we know we're playing against a team that can compete with anybody in the country because they have, when you look at the people that they have played this year. And it's like a who's who, people that are in the NCAA tournament when you start to look at Duke, Kansas, Syracuse, and certainly the people that are in their league. So Temple is for 6 straight years in the tournament, and Fran Dunphy having the great track record that he has as a coach, and the track record in this tournament is extremely strong. We've just kept trying to look for any similarities that we can bring to our team from our league, and it starts real quick when you get with Wyatt, and you can start making comparisons to Trey Burke and how he plays and how much the ball is in his hands, and not only the way that he shoots it, but the way that he delivers it, and we're used to that, and Wyatt, Cleve Wyatt takes a backseat to no one in the country right now when it comes to being a complete guard. So we're going to have to do an outstanding job there. But much like any other great team, if you spend too much time on one part of the team or one part of the game, then you're going to shortchange it in other places. And they are really, really good. We saw firsthand when we were in Puerto Rico when Christian and Jordan and Derek and Maurice were freshmen, just how good Jake O'Brien was when we played against Boston University when he was there playing for Pat Chambers. And we're very familiar now, with what Jefferson means to their team, what Randall means to their team, DeLeo, Cummings. They're just they're an all-around tough team, and they epitomize toughness to me because they extend possessions, they get back, they make it tough for you to score, they move the ball, they can drive it. There's not a ton of things that you would say that you're getting ready for, and all the different offensive things that they do. When it comes to all the different plays, but you certainly have to get ready for how good their players are. And it's a tall task. There's no doubt about it. And Steve McClain has been on top of this since Sunday night. So we feel like we're all pretty well versed in it right now. Our team is well versed in it with more time to get ready. And just like anything else this time of year, you've got to bring your best. You've got to bring your A game and your A attitude, to get ready to play. It sounds corny, but it's true. And that's exactly how we're approaching this.
Questions for Coach, right here in the front.
Coach, it's this team, do you feel a sense that these guys understand that the clock's ticking each time the ball goes up for them playing together? And because Christian said that he just wants to play as long as possible with these guys. Do you feel that sense with them?
Maybe. I'm not locked into that. I'm more locked into just are we treating every part of what we're doing is the most important thing. But I'm sure that plays into it, absolutely. I want to be around them. So factors in for me. But the reason they're in the position that they're in, the reason that they won the league the way that they did is because they really do. They bring their preparation, they bring their focus, they bring a togetherness, they bring it all the time. And I think that just continues to compound. And it's certainly you want it to be at its peak this time of year. So if that helps put it at its peak, then I think that's really good.
Here in the back.
Yeah, hi, Coach. Good start for the Big Ten. I think 6-1 in the first game. Is that kind of what you would expect? And is it nice to not be beating up each other right now?
Well, I think the Big Ten's outstanding. I don't think there's any question about that. Nobody could argue it. And I think to just watch just a little bit that I've watched, and I didn't see a lot of the Michigan game, but I saw enough to see that, they were out and flying around and attacking. And I think the league prepares you for everything. And everything and anything, like I tell our team all the time. And I'm sure the other coaches have their own statements of how they view it, but it really all comes back to that. So no surprise whatsoever with how the Big Ten's playing.
Cool.
Nicole Auerbach, USA Today. Tom, I know senior night was an emotional night, and just about can you just talk about what that senior class has meant for the program and how they'll always be able to come back and know that they had a huge impact on the revival of the program?
Well, they've established a legacy. There's no question about that, because they were the ones that came back, and still in a short recruiting period at that point with them, even though we knew some of them a little bit longer. But they were the ones that came back, that had other opportunities to go other places, and they came because it was a great tradition, because they felt they'd have an opportunity, and even at that point they had no true idea what they were getting into. And to have all of them be the ones that had to go through it without the upperclassmen, without the leaders in front of them, showing them the way, teaching them the way, helping them. I mean, I always knew that that was a big deal. But now when you look at the last couple of years, the way our juniors and seniors have helped the young guys, then you really realize how much they missed. And it's like a part of their childhood they'll never get back. You know, when you come into a program at that age and you are expected to go into this great, bona fide, you know, excellent league from top to bottom and compete in it night in and night out and be held responsible and accountable for those results without ever going through it before with anybody to show you how, that's a really big thing. Really big thing. So I think it's shaped them. I think it's helped them. I don't think there's any question that they've all grown. I think there's an uncommon bond with those guys, and it's fun to see. I've been around that uncommon bond before, and years later you see how it still manifests itself, especially with being an assistant at Michigan State or being the head coach at Marquette. You see that come to life, and I don't think it's going to be any different with this group.
Hi, Coach. Steve Andrus, WDRB-TV in Louisville. Could you share a story or maybe some insight into how ultra-competitive Will Sheehy is? He was in the locker room and was locked up tighter than Fort Knox when everybody asked him about scouting reports.
Well, I'm not, that's probably not a good area for me. I just love Will's competitiveness, and I love his attitude. He's a force of energy. He's one of the best athletes combined with smarts and competitiveness that I've ever been around, that I've ever had the privilege to coach. He gets better. He's been a huge, huge part of how our work ethic in the program, along with Victor and Jordan Halls, was established, where if you weren't in the gym doing extra, you felt guilty because those guys were. But they're also a great example of what happens when you do spend that kind of time. Will takes a backseat to no one when it comes to extra work, when it comes to the abilities that he has. What he has that's really unique is he's got an incredible future. I think he's going to be an NBA player. But when basketball is all said and done, way down the line, he'll be one of the finest coaches that I could imagine if he wants to do that. I mean, if he ends up wanting to do that down the road, he's got such an attitude and an ability to see things and talk his teammates through it that when he does that, it's like having an extra player on the floor. It's like having an extra coach on the floor in practice, for one thing. But he's got a real sense of what it takes to be successful. And so that's why I appreciate him so much.
Chase Senior, PhillyHoops.com. Coach, you mentioned Khalif Wyatt and his offensive capabilities. He's not the biggest or strongest guy, but what type of elements of his game make him so hard to defend? Well,
he knows he's really good. I don't know the young man, but he knows he's really good. You can tell that there's no moment that's too big for him. You know, the bigger the stage, it doesn't make any difference, I would think. I mean, just to have the success that he's had. And he can get it to the rim, he can score in a pull-up, he can make threes from range, and he can find his teammates. And so when you have somebody like that can hurt you and beat you from so many different aspects of his game, that makes him that much more of a dangerous opponent. But they've got an excellent team. They get great spacing. And you can't become so locked into him that you forget about everybody else, and that's going to be a real key.
Usually your starters played sparingly, Coach, up to 10 to 20 minutes for most of them. Temple starters played up to 35 to 40. How's that going to change the game at all in terms of fatigue and how much you want to run the court?
I don't think it changes as much this time of year. I do think those timeouts play into this a little bit, the 20-minute halftime. I think all that adds into it. And really, we've tried to pace our season four times like this and not to have – plus, you want to develop the quality of your bench. There's been some days it's been good. There's been some days it hasn't been as good. But you want to develop that. You don't want to wear out your starters, because you do want to play at a certain pace. But I don't know how relevant that is this time of year, personally.
Coach, I know he's affected the team in other areas throughout the season, but how important has it been to have Remy shooting the ball the way he has the last few games for you guys off the bench?
Remy's been fantastic, and he just continues to work on his game with great diligence throughout the season. And it's had some real good moments and stretches for us, but certainly in the last few weeks, his confidence has continued to soar again. And it's important, because then it's like we've got, when he's playing the way he's capable of, it's like having 7 starters.
Tom, can you elaborate back here? Can you elaborate on coaching against Fran Dunphy? And not sure if you ever did when you were at Marquette, but what does that element add to this game?
No, I haven't never had the chance, but I've had a lot of respect for him. He's always treated me really well. We have I don't know him great, but we have some mutual friends, and he's just an excellent basketball coach. I mean, you watch his teams, and now especially watching them, but I've watched them since Penn, so watching his teams now, you just see that there's no, they're not going to get surprised. They're not going to beat themselves. They're going to have an answer for everything. You can just see that in the quality of their play. And there's a poise under pressure. You know, again, I think that all stems from him, you know, and from what I observe. But this time of year, you're going to be going against great coaches all the time, and there's certainly no question that he is and has been one for a very long time.
Sorry.
Rick Mace with the Washington Post. Could you reminisce a little bit about your early encounters with Victor? What do you remember? What were your first encounters like with him, his family, DeMatha?
Well, to me, I'll give you the things that stood out. The humbleness stood out to me. Certainly when you see him on the court, the burst, the athleticism, the ability to play at the rim. You know, I've got my 3 or 4 favorite baseline out of bounds or sideline out of bounds dunks I've seen him get. And whether it was at DeMatha or with Team Takeover. And really it all stemmed from the humbleness, very inquisitive. I think that's why he's so respected by so many people, not only his peers back there, but his coaches. And some of the people that he's closest to were not only his head coaches, but his assistant coaches and the people that were parts of the staff. And Victor has always epitomized one of those people. He treats everybody with great respect that he comes in contact with. I don't think a title, you'd be hard-pressed to find a manager that wouldn't have the greatest things to say about him and the way that he treats him. It's just the way he is. Now, that comes from how he was raised. There's no doubt about that. You know, as I've gotten to know his mother and through the recruiting process and certainly more now, and I see his sisters and I see the bond that they have. And I was sitting with him last night having something to eat, and it was Cody. I'd come in after everything was done to grab something, and Cody and Victor were sitting there, so I wanted to get permission to sit with the 2 All-Americans because never had 2 All-Americans at once, so got to sit at their table, but Victor's mom called, and just to be a fly on the wall listening to them have a conversation and him asking about his sisters. And you know what? That was one time for me, and that probably happens twice a day, maybe 3 times. You know, that's who he is. What you see is what you get, but what you get is a guy that's got an incredible desire to be successful, never at the expense of anybody else, but always knowing that his work ethic is going to be the thing that drives him. He wants to see others be successful. He wants to be successful, and he never stops working to make that happen. I mean, never stops working. And everybody sees the rise of the player. What I've seen, and we've always had the student. I mean, he's always done a great job in school. What I've seen is the rise of the student of the game and the way that he really, really studies the film and absorbs and tries to take things away. And he's never in there just watching tape. He's in there studying the game. And it's the same thing when the film session's over and there's an NCAA tournament game on. He's the same way. He's not just watching it as a fan. And I think all those things are going to really serve him well down the road.
Cool.
Tom, I have kind of an offbeat question. One of my colleagues is doing a story on Dwayne Wade. So I'm just, he's had an outstanding season this year, but LeBron has kind of overshadowed him. Wondering your thoughts on his season this year, and then also on being a part of the Heat streak that they're going through.
Well, I think the last guy that would look at being overshadowed by one of his teammates would be Dwayne, because the comfort he has in his own person. I mean, Dove's got the new commercial with him, but he should have done the one. I'm definitely comfortable in my own skin one. Though I love the one with his 2 kids. But I mean, he wants to win. He's always been like that. He was the best player on our team at Marquette, but he had a drive that endeared him to his teammates. It didn't infuriate or scare his teammates. It brought them together. It moved them up, and he could take coaching and needling from his teammates. And I have no doubt that at the age of 31, he's doing that probably better than ever. He sees the big picture. He always has. He always has, especially his first year when he was sitting out. Because if you don't see the big picture, there's no way, when you've had basketball taken away from you the way that it was, that you really can endure that the way that he did. And he could see the big picture. He could see the future. And I think that's why he made the honor roll that year, the first semester, because he knew there was something out there for him. And I think he's like that whether it's business, whether it's the basketball part of it, whatever it is. He sees it, but he's very detail oriented, and he knows. The best thing I can say about him too is he wants to be successful, but he wants others around him to be successful because he knows if they are, he will be too. And I think he's had that for a long, long time.
And your thoughts on the streak?
On the streak, I think the way they win, I think you can see they've got all the parts put together. And again, when it's somebody's turn in the game to be hot, whether it's Shane Battier, whether it's Chris Bosh, whether it's Dwayne, whether it's LeBron, they let that happen. But then as soon as it's time for somebody else to make a play, that teammate lets that happen. And what you see, to me, is three things: incredible unselfishness, a great toughness, and a team that fuels so much off of their defense. And I think when you have those three things, then you have the confidence that they're winning with.
Tom, back here in the back. I asked Jordan Holes about this, and he wasn't aware that he's tied the record for most games played at Indiana. Can you talk about how important it's been to have that kind of consistency out of Jordan, and just the fact that he doesn't take into consideration these individual accomplishments?
Yeah, that's funny you say that. We knew he was close a couple weeks ago, and Christian was close to the most starts, I believe, at Indiana. So I don't know how I would epitomize that. He has been everything we could have asked for from the beginning, because if you had a chance to see senior night, that's exactly what it is. We have such family-oriented guys that helps them be kind. It doesn't make a difference if they have the traditional family or the non-traditional family, but they're very family-oriented. And certainly he's got a very traditional family, and what happens is he comes in and from the very beginning, he's made his family part of our players' families, especially when we had some distance kids at the beginning. And for him to have had the career that he's had and having at Indiana, for him to do the things that he's done, for him to continue to grow and get better, for him to continue to be the teammate that he has. I mean, when he's had issues this year, it's because he's pressed too hard, because he wants it too much, because almost sometimes he's trying too hard. And that's because he wants to win so bad. And that's because he wants his teammates to be successful. And I think when you have somebody like that, he's already established his place like Christian has, the older guys in the history of Indiana basketball, and deservedly so. Jordan is one of those people that you can always point to and say, this person always came in here, gave his very best, and at the same time wanted his teammates. I mean, it's really a common theme with our group. I mean, there's an unselfishness to him. And he's a huge part of that.
Coach, you never faced Temple in your career. How much respect do you have for that school as a university institution? Both Temple and Indiana have amazing basketball histories behind them. Well,
I was a part of it with Tom Izzo at Michigan State. We had chances to play Temple. So I've been there, been to the new center, or when it was the new center, and when Coach Chaney was there, and you had Pepe Sanchez and people like that. If you love basketball, you love Temple. How do you not? I mean, it's a great basketball program. Steve Adazio is a friend of mine, so I follow Temple football. And appreciated what he did there, and was following Al Golden before that. I mean, I just think Temple's being in the East Coast enough to recruit and being by it. I love it. I mean, it reminded me a lot of Marquette, and I love those kind of schools in the sense where the basketball program is so big, and it's such a big deal to so many people, and it's such a big deal to the city. And I think what Fran has done is he's gone in there and he's made Temple continue to be the biggest thing. It's not about any one individual or about any one part of it. It's Temple basketball. I mean, I read something where he was showing his reverence again to John Chaney. I mean, that's a coach's coach right there, and they've got great tradition. But I mean, if you're going to characterize the program, you've got to characterize it with durability. You got to characterize it with toughness, and you got to characterize it with fearlessness, whether how they play or how they've scheduled all these years.
Coach, you've rebuilt the Indiana program from the ground up, but you had the Indiana name and the tradition behind it to do it. Florida Gulf Coast hasn't had any of that, and they knock off a team that you guys beat. Just your thoughts on their win yesterday.
Well, I didn't get to see any of it. I just heard the score. But Florida Gulf Coast is. You ever been there? I don't think it's hard to recruit to that campus. It's pretty nice. But no, they've done a great job there. Dave did a great job before Andy came in there of building that up. and taking a program and getting it to come up and getting players and getting a few transfers here and there and scheduling big and getting some money in the program. And now it's going to get harder for those guarantee games. But they just built up the profile. And again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And it's real easy to sell a place like Indiana, but you can only sell it so much. The people that are around you have to be able to see that too, and they have to be able to sell it, and your fans have to do it. I think that's going to be exciting for Florida Gulf Coast now. And they've had some big wins over the last couple of years, and it's been building. And we played them in some of their earlier days, especially at Marquette too, with the Division I. And so you got to see them kind of coming up. So it's a great situation right now for that if you really believe in your program, if you've got a great staff, if you get some people around you that believe in it too, you're going to attract other really good players because people want a chance to compete and win. And then you've got games like that. So I think it's great for the game, even though I love what Georgetown does too. I mean, when we played Georgetown, you just knew they were going to get nothing but better. So I didn't watch the game enough to have a comment on how it played out. I just saw the score.
Coach Dustin DePierac, Bloomington Herald-Times. Just as a point guard, what does Yogi Ferrell see that other guys don't see, just in terms of his court vision, his ability to find guys, what does he see that other guys don't see?
Well, I like that he's always learning. I think it's real easy when you've had a lot of success at the age that he's had it, is to really become locked into this is how it is. And he's not like that. And I saw somebody wrote where somebody must have asked him about his high school coach, and who I just think is brilliant. And his high school coach, he talked about some of the things that he learned from him. That's how he is. It's not just us looking at it as coaches saying, these guys are really well coached. It's them remembering it. And so that makes it so much easier for you when you're adding things to it. But I think he's got great vision. I think when he lets the game come in the sense of giving it up early, whether he's got a drive, throwing ahead early, he's really learning more and more that it's going to come back to him in a very advantageous situation. And the more that you try to make something happen, the harder it is. The more that you let it happen because the ball has moved, and now you're creating these one-on-ones all over the court, then you see that great burst of speed that he has. But he works extremely hard on his shot. There's nobody over the last month in the program that has spent more time than him. There's some that spend as much time, but more time being in there, working on his shot, being in there at night, being in there on off days. Very, very hungry player. But still, to me, he's going to continue to get better. I go back to a year ago. I don't know if you were there or not when they played North Central. Were you at that game? When they played North Central at North Central, and watching him pick apart a defense and find people in all corners and just deliver the basketball the way that he does. He's just got a great gift of he can see it and then he'll trigger it right away. But even today, when we're going through the film, there were a couple of plays that could have been made better. He sees that and then he responds to it, and then he usually carries it right out the next day. So the short memory thing is the biggest thing to me. He gets over success and he gets over failure real quick, and he moves right on.
Got time for one more question. Last one.
Coach Sean Pastor from Owls Daily. You started at the beginning talking about comparisons of Temple in the Big Ten, and I look at just statistically, there are three teams, probably Wisconsin, Michigan, and Illinois, that shoot threes as often as Temple does. Is one of those three a close comparison?
Well, no. I mean, we've just tried to compare more with the individual players and the way they play. I think Temple can beat you a lot of different ways. And I think that's why they're so dangerous. They can go inside. They can rebound misses. Big thing is going to be not allowing them to extend possessions the way that they do, with the rebounding. They do an excellent job with that. But I don't know if I'd compare them, per se to one team. I think there's lots of bits and pieces you can take. But you just try to give your guys a baseline, as they're studying the film. Hey, this is similar to what he did. This is similar to what he did. Those type of things. But I think they also watch enough basketball to know they know about Temple, and they know about Wyatt, and the older guys know about O'Brien from BU, and now they're all real familiar with the rest of them in a short period of time.
Tom, thank you.
All right, thank you.